Thank you very much, and thank you for the help with actually plugging in my computer so you can see stuff. I was worried that the screen didn't work, but it was, just me. So, welcome, and my name is Trine, as it was mentioned. I work with UX consultancy, and specifically the type of UX that helps improve products, not the opposite. Speaking of UX, I just tried to log on to the Wi-Fi here and got this message. Forbidden, you don't have permission to access on this server, despite the fact that I actually was, successfully logged on, which is, pretty common for poor UX patterns. The thing is, everything today is digital, right? Whether you're buying a pair of running shoes or whether you're ordering a pizza, everything happens partly digitally and partly offline. So much so that clickbait has even found its way into, offline stuff. And you could say that because everything is digital, that the experience is now the product and vice versa. So we're building products that have some type of experience connected to them. And also, there has never been a more easy access to user data as we have today. The data broker industry is booming. Oracle now has access to 5 billion unique customer IDs. This is from a survey that was made, but this is actually confirmed on Oracle's website. So everyone in this room is profiled by Oracle. That's not a very comforting thought, is it? But the thing is, surveillance capitalism is a big business. And so we have products, almost on a daily basis that sell out. Onavo was one of them. It's a VPN app that the mission statement of them is to protect your data online. And they did so for their 24 million users until they went and sold their data to Facebook. Right, it's big business. But the thing is, change is coming. We are entering the age of the customer, according to Forbes. And what defines the age of the customer is that loyalty is decreasing. Customers are more emotionally driven than ever before. And so there is very much a societal pressure on companies to do the right thing and to act with decency. Now, there is also something to do with transparency and traceability. This goes both ways, right? From a digital perspective, we can track and trace pretty much everything we want with different types of analytical tools. But the consumer, on the other hand, can also track and trace the products in a much more specific way, because we no longer communicate primarily on the phone, for instance. So there is no longer a situation where a customer can claim that something happened and the company can claim that we never said this, because we have it on email, right? Or we have it in some type of chat log. So the traceability and transparency goes both ways, and this also dictates a change in the way that consumers approach and perceive digital products. Recently, it was published that San Francisco is the first US city to ban facial recognition. So change is coming. We are seeing new tendencies, new global megatrends that point in the direction that it's a good idea to act with more decency than we've probably been used to before. Now, surveillance capitalism, which is something that's very much discussed these days, is something that belongs in the black hat category, right? For those of you who are unfamiliar with the terms black hat and white hat, they come from hacking. I'm assuming that most of you people would know what that's kind of the background. We also use it in search engine optimization, where white hat search engine optimization is where we actually use content to create better search results, whereas the black hat equivalent is where we use tricks to make that happen. And we can find some of the same mechanisms in UX. And it's very important for me to mention and to claim that decisions that affect UX are often business decisions. And I'll show you a bunch of examples. Pretty much every example that I bring up today, you can see that that was a business decision. These were not decisions made by designers or developers who decided that this, on their own hand, that this was something they wanted to do. Very often, it's something that comes from a business decision. The business asks us to make something happen, so we have to, to use tricks to make that happen. Now, black hat UX decisions often manifest themselves in what we call dark patterns. And dark patterns are design patterns that are made to make us make mistakes or to force us to do something we didn't intend to or actually are not comfortable doing. So, for instance, interactiondesign.org, which actually is a website that I think very highly of, they decided a few months ago that when a user dismissed or decided not to be a member anymore, that they put a calendar entry into his calendar that actually pops up every 3 weeks asking him to rejoin. This calendar entry is not, the user is not able to remove this calendar entry, and it's entered into his calendar for 5 years. Why would you want to do that, right? And there are different types of patterns. This one is called forced disclosure, where you're forced to disclose information that you actually don't want to, disclose. This was an example of a piece of software that is designed to track user behavior. So go figure that they want my data as well. I just wanted to see a demo of the software. So I click the demo button, and I reach this screen where it asks me to fill in my first name, last name, company email, and phone number just to watch a 30-second demo of their product. Why would I want to do that? But they kind of forced me to do that if I want to see their product. The roadblock is also a very common dark pattern where we're forced to do something and we can't really go forward unless we do something to make that roadblock go away. It's very commonly known that the news press has a tough time, right? They've had a tough time for 15 years. And so one of the tricks they try to use to make more people disable their ad blockers so that they can display more ads on their websites is by forcing us to remove or to disable our ad blocker. How many of you have an ad blocker installed? Would you want to do this to read stuff on this website? Yeah, not really, right? You also see these types of patterns. This one is called a roach motel. A roach motel is a sleazy hotel that's very easy to get a booking, but it's impossible to get out. So in this case, the roach motel pattern consists of the ability to upgrade online, but if you want to downgrade this subscription that you have, you actually have to call the support hotline. Very easy to get in, right? Very easy to pay more, but very hard to get out of because you have to call them. But it can get even worse. This is how many of you have a Skype account? How many of you have successfully deleted your Skype account? No one? I've used this screenshot quite a lot of times in talks. I haven't yet met a person anywhere on this earth who was able to delete their Skype account. Back in the day, you could actually delete your Skype account by calling them and answering all sorts of weird questions. But these days, your Skype account and your Microsoft account are linked. So if you want to delete your Skype account, you also have to delete your Microsoft account, which means that you can no longer use any of your Microsoft products or services. How many of you use Outlook, Office, Online, OneDrive, Xbox Live, or Windows? Yeah, right? So it's actually an impossible task, and it doesn't represent any kind of free choice. Facebook is so evil that they actually have their own dark pattern. It's called privacy suckering, named after Mark. So an example of privacy suckering, we know that Facebook basically scrapes all the data from our lives and then make use of it to make money. How many of you participated in the 10-year challenge? Okay, you're smart. Because you know what? It would be fun to see yourself age over time, right? And see everyone else, your friends, and how they aged over time. If I were Facebook, and I just say I will, just assuming that I would be developing an algorithm to improve facial recognition, I would find it really, really, nice to have this type of data, the aging process over 10 years of the millions of people who participated in this challenge. So that's kind of tricky. Just like when you buy the Kobe cows, the cows that come out of, or that live in the Kobe area in Japan, they're not really treated the way they are to, make the cows feel good. They get massages, they get really good food, they get, they stroke them with stuff to make them feel good. But the thing is, the reason why they do that is to make the meat really good, right? They don't do it for the cow, they do it for the meat. And we could, perceive ourselves in this, like this as well when it comes to Facebook and the data that we unwillingly or willingly give to them. Now, these dark patterns are not to be mistaken for anti-patterns. They're in the gray zone between, right? But anti-patterns are just design patterns that aren't really very good. They're used often, but they work equally bad every time. Like when a form, this is actually the form that I used to log into my former web host. They went out of business. I don't know why. But the thing is, you have this really ugly form, and it has different form fields that you have to enter. So I entered my domain name and my password, and then I always, because you don't do this, every day, right? So I always get to click login, and I forget the stupid CAPTCHA, so it asks me to re-enter my details. It just says bad characters in the image code. Please try again. It didn't say you forgot. And then it also deletes my, my previously entered details, so I have to do it all over again. I actually sometimes had to do this 3 times. It was, and just because of a CAPTCHA and a bad code. Or what about this one? Can anyone guess which of these fields is a text field? One of them is. I don't know. But they all look the same, right? One of them is a text field that you can type into, but you can't really tell which one it is. That's also just sloppy design, right? And I mean, if we just look at what we're exposed to online and compare that to what we would accept offline, I actually don't think that we would. This is, some of you might have seen this, but I think it always proves a very, very good point. So let's just look at this. Okay, we don't have any audio. Audio guy?
Zandy Pops. Sorry. Zandy Pops?
No, okay, don't worry, I'll help.
I'll just...
Hey, just that, thanks.
You sure?
Yeah.
Username?
Oh, Nick M?
No.
NM 1983?
No.
Zandy Pops?
Sorry.
Zandy Pops?
No, okay, don't worry, I'll help. What's your postcode?
Oh, it's GU749ZT.
Welcome back, Nick Forever.
Okay.
Please listen carefully to this bread license agreement before continuing with your purchase of a loaf of bread. If you do not, blah, blah, blah. You also agree not to use any bread-based product for any purposes prohibited by United Kingdom law, including without limitation, design, development, manufacture of missiles, chemical, nuclear or biological weapons.
Tick.
I'm afraid you've timed out.
What? Sorry. Hello? Excuse me. Oh, yeah, hey.
Just one loaf, sir.
Yeah, we just...
What's your username?
It's Nick Forever, but number 4, not the...
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to check that you're a real person. Could you say that for me?
That's not even a word.
Okay, how about this one?
You know what, forget it.
Or this one?
Hipad Potter Nice.
You're in.
Great, I'm in.
£8.85.
It's supposed to be 98 pence.
Plus express delivery.
What's that?
Oh, well, it's express delivery. It's fast. So there's, standard.
Standard.
Standard delivery, that's £4.99.
Why?
Bread insurance. You didn't untick the don't decline bread insurance option.
You know what, I think I'll risk it.
It is quite close to the sell-by date.
Don't care.
98 pence it is. If you want to pop back in 5 business days, it'll be ready for your collection.
Well, I need it now, obviously.
Oh, okay. You want the take-home today price? Well, that's £3.27.
You know what, I'm going to go.
Come back soon.
I won't.
We put up with this every single day online. Why do we do that to ourselves? I ask myself. But the thing is, a lot of these decisions, right? The decision to force people to give up lots of information to watch a demo, it's not something that a designer or developer just decided because they were having a crap morning, right? It's not their decision. It was someone in the business department saying, we need more sign-ups to our newsletter, we need more email addresses and phone numbers and companies in our database. Make it happen, right? So that's how it happens. But there are lots of consequences of these poor UX decisions. Now, one of the very, very common things that happen when companies fall in the trap of using retargeting is that they actually get, they get a lot of heat for it. So, and it's a very common strategy, right? I would assume that most of the companies that you probably work for use this kind of stuff. So retargeting works like this. Imagine you were looking at a car on a website, right? So you have a customer, or you're the customer, you look at a website for a car, but you leave, you search for a specific model, but then you leave without, renting or purchasing or doing anything else. What happens is the data of that model, that particular model of car that you looked for, now haunts you if this website is using retargeting, because that information now is tracked and linked to you. So whenever you go to another website that uses the same retargeting agent, they show you an ad for that particular car until you either get a really efficient ad blocker or you buy the car, right? The problem, there are many problems with this. One of the problems is that this retargeting, the algorithm doesn't always work. This was a very hilarious example that I found online. Yeah. I mean, how many toilet seats does one person need, right? But it's not just getting laughed at online, even though that happens a lot, and getting into shitstorms. It was very recently published that a pregnancy club called Bounty Pregnancy Club decided to enter into the data broker industry without the knowledge of their users. So what they actually did, they had lots of information, and they gathered information across their website, or user data, across their website, their apps, stuff they put in these boxes that you get when you get a new baby and you get diapers, etc., and also from interviews, and this is just mind-blowing, interviews with mothers with infants in hospital. That data was sold to 39 organizations, and I believe the number was 34.3 million records within a year. They sold to 39 organizations that could then target very specifically these people. Bounty Pregnancy Club was fined £400,000. That's a pretty significant fine. But it's actually very cheap for them compared to the amount of data that they sold, right? So I guess they think it's still worth it. They've come out and, with this lame apology, and yeah, we want to do better, but this is just totally unacceptable. But this happens on a daily basis. There's also a very common pattern called hidden costs. So it's about hiding shipping costs and charges until the very end of checkout. It's a very common e-commerce pattern, right? And the motivation is to keep the perceived total cost of order down, because that's actually, it's been proven that that's the most important thing for people. That's the total cost of an order. The problem is that, it happens like this. So you get this rate, and then you realize that the total amount is actually a lot bigger because they add all these charges. We've all had this happen, right? Numerous times. What happens is that 24% of users have abandoned an order within the past 3 months because they couldn't see or calculate the total order cost. So the price of using these anti-patterns and dark patterns can actually be quite severe. The problem is that these companies who do this can't really understand why it happens. So they try to improve all sorts of stuff, but they don't realize that all we want is to see the total cost and just have that transparency. We can do better. And we should do better. And that's why I'm here. That's my thing. We need to do better. And one way to do better is by changing the approach we have to UX, right? Instead of thinking, how much can we get away with, let's start thinking, what can we do to improve the experiences? Because people will vote with their feet. If we treat them poorly, they will walk away because the competitor is always just a click away, right? It's also very important to me for you to understand that UX is everyone's business. You can't say because you're a developer that, this UX stuff, it belongs in the design department or whatever. You can't, because it is everyone's business. And it is also yours to improve, because a lot of the things that manifest itself in a poor UI, in a poor user experience, happens on, the back end, happens in the code, because of sloppy code or because of time pressure or whatever, or because of a manager who says, make this happen. Increase this number, increase this KPI, that's so important to us. The thing is that the ideal situation would obviously be that everything sort of happens top down, that management and on C-level, everyone is on board with the fact that, we need to improve the user experience because that will improve our competitive advantage and our business, and it will make for happy people, right? It will improve our product. But it doesn't mean, if that doesn't happen, it doesn't mean that you cannot help make those improvements. You can make that change even if you work bottom up, even if you're in a team that has to convince management or C-level that this has to happen, you can do that. And there are tons of ways to do that. But one of the first things you need to do is challenge the decisions that you are asked to execute, right? We need to start challenging the decisions instead of just saying, okay, I'll do that. Challenge what you're told to do, or challenge what you're presented with. And we can do that by asking 4 questions, 4 simple questions. The first is, why are we making this decision? What is the reason why, behind this? And I'll give you, we go through some examples. Also, who benefits from this decision, right? Is it just a business that will benefit from this? Then maybe we need to take a good look at, is there any user need that we can tap into that will actually help us make this happen? Also, what are the consequences of this decision? Not just short-term consequences, but also on the long term, what consequences are we imposing on ourselves and the people that use our product when we make this decision? And also, and this is actually quite important, if you're building a feature, would I want my loved ones to be using this? The reason why this question is important is that it hits you it hits you in the heart. So if your clear answer to this is, heck no, maybe this decision isn't the right one. Let's look at a couple of examples. So going back to the Skype example, why was this decision made? Why was the decision made that you cannot delete your Skype account unless you basically delete your entire access to all the products that Microsoft, have and that you tap into? Maybe it's because they want you to keep your Skype account. Why is that? Maybe because they want to keep that close connection with your contacts, with you not going to a competitive product and use that for calls instead. What are the benefits of this? Well, it's pretty clear from the business side that there's a big benefit from this, right? They keep their numbers high because people basically can't leave. They just close the door. But the benefits from the user perspective is, none. They just keep trapped there. And we now have this account that we have to maintain and make sure that it doesn't get hacked, etc., etc. It's a maintenance thing as well. Even if we stop using our Skype account, we still have to maintain it. What are the consequences? Well, the consequences is that the amount of Skype users are being kept really high, but artificially, right? Because it's because they make the move so difficult. There is this term called cost of move in IT. The cost of move here is, very, very high and very impossible because they basically just shut the door. And the consequences from the user perspective can be that, again, they have this maintenance to do, and also that we limit them of their free choice. And that's not, it's not the right thing to do. I know for a fact that I don't want my kids to ever get a Skype account, period. So if you don't want to ask all these questions, and just kind of want that one asset test, feel in the stomach and ask yourselves, would I want to share my work with others? This particular piece of work that I just did, would I want to share that? Would I want to tweet that? Would I proudly tweet that? I'm so proud to have built this feature that allows for people to sign up with just one step, reducing friction and ensuring their digital safety. I would definitely want to, to tweet that if that was something that I had built. On the flip side, I'm so proud to have built a feature that secretly adds products to the user's shopping cart. Yay, UX innovation, maximizing profit. Not so much, right? That's the asset test. Would I want to tweet this? That's a pretty easy question to answer. Now, you might think that this doesn't happen anymore. The sneak into basket is not a thing anymore. It kind of is. So, Huel is, I guess, a diet product of some sort. I saw this in the dark patterns track on Twitter. So Holly here is upset because, and she asks Huel whether it's actually accurate that 2 products are snuck into her shopping cart whenever she enters the website. And they answer, with a smiley. The vanilla and mint chocolate are pre-selected when you go onto the page, as these are the most popular. However, if you don't want them, simply click the minus next to the quantity, and these should leave your basket. Smiley. Right? Yeah. Well, then we forgive them, right? No, and I checked, it's true. You just enter the website of the Huel powder version 1.1, and voila, you have a chocolate and vanilla flavor in your, that you have to deselect if you don't want them. So this still happens. I was pretty astonished. And you know what? If you have an hour to spend and you don't know what to spend it on, do a Twitter search for dark patterns. But it comes with a warning. It's like looking for that one perfect cat photo for your talk or for, whatever. It's that kind of rabbit hole that you won't ever get out of. Yeah, so asking and challenging the decisions was one thing, right? The second thing you need to do is adopting a human-centric mindset, or user-centric mindset, whatever you want to call it. So I once worked for a startup that was based in Japan. We had lots of Japanese kids as our target group. And I spent 2 weeks in Japan doing research with the Japanese children. We were building a safe community online for young creators. So we had to research with a lot of different kids around the world, and one of the places was Japan. This is a photo of the first lunch that I ordered. I just hit ground in Japan, had traveled for 15 hours, was super hungry. So I just entered a restaurant. I was told that there are no bad restaurants in Japan. So, just pick one. Okay, so I picked this one. I enter this little restaurant, I sit down, and the waitress comes, and she doesn't speak a word of English. Well, yes, no, and thank you. The menu card is in Japanese, and I ask her, there are thankfully pictures on the menu card, so I ask her, I tried to, what's the best on your, what is the special? So what do people often, and she just said, yes. So I pointed something, and she said yes, and then 8 minutes later, this arrives. Super efficient, and very tasty. I'm still not sure what that meat was, though. But but it gave me, spending 2 weeks in a country where I could not read a street sign, or communicate very well with people, gave me a newfound respect and empathy for designing stuff for children that are so young that they don't necessarily have the capability of reading the UI that I was designing, right? That was truly stepping into the shoes of the user, because I basically became that 7-year-old or 5-year-old that was trying to navigate on an English website, being from Poland, right? You have to do this. You have to put yourselves in the shoes of your users and really to truly empathize with them. Now, what actually manifested out of that? Because working user-centric can really bring beautiful products, beautiful things. So we realized that these very young users from all over the world wouldn't be able to, they might be able to spell in their own language, but they would never be able to spell in foreign languages. So what we created was a language-agnostic search engine that searches across 17 languages. So if you were a Danish child and you wanted to figure out what kind of rhinos other people, other kids all over the world were drawing, you just search for næsehorn, which is the Danish word for rhino, and you get a search result for all the rhinos, all the rhino drawings that kids from all over the world had actually entered into this database in their own languages, mind you. Japanese, Italian, Polish, Hungarian, what have you. And we did this because we realized, because we had spent so much time with these kids, that this was a necessity. And one of the things that I was actually most proud of was when after doing research and realizing that, because in the setup process, in the registration process, we would ask, when I entered the company, they would ask, the gender of the child when creating a profile. And I was thinking to myself, why is that necessary? Why is that we need that we need these kids to say that they're a boy or a girl? Is that really necessary? So I spent a lot of time with kids, in various places, and realized they never asked for it. Whenever they got excited about something they saw, they never, ever once did I see someone say, oh, this is a girl, or this is a boy, so I don't want to interact with, his or her creations. Not once. So what I did was I suggested to the CEO that we change this. And I was kind of nervous because, this had been there forever. And I was so pleasantly surprised to understand that they just said, yes, let's do that. Let's just remove it. It doesn't make sense. And that came out of working user-centered. And it came out of a very empathetic mission statement that claims finding and developing a child's individual voice by being able to express thoughts and ideas freely. Right? So working with the user at the center brings beautiful things. And empathy makes it harder to close your eyes and pretend you don't see. We just have to acknowledge that emotion. But human-centered itself doesn't necessarily lead to a more ethical design approach. But the deep empathy that we grow from interacting with the people that we work with, that use our products, does spark that initial thought. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. I love this method. It's called hug the laptop. Oh, there's a Danish word, method. It's called hug the laptop. I first heard about it from a researcher from Airbnb. They use this method all the time. It's basically if you want to, if someone's using a phone device, then for you to see what they actually do, they just turn around their laptop if you're not there, and then you can conduct remote testing like that. It's super smart and very low maintenance and low resource. Yes. So in terms of working user-centered, what you need to do, if you're in this position, is to expose the entire team to the end-user struggles and successes with your product. It can be super painful to understand something that you build actually doesn't work, right? It can be really, really painful, but it's also very helpful. And there's actually some research that's been done by Jared Spool about exposure hours. Because it's actually not enough just to have hearsay, just to get the UX designer to bring forward some research claiming that, or showing some videos that clearly shows that a user isn't able to use a specific feature of a product. That's the first step, but it's not enough. So Jared Spool did some extensive research, and he came to the conclusion that you need 2 hours for every 6 weeks, and you need to involve all team members. That includes the C-level, and the developers, and the designers, and everyone else. And then you need to combine field visits and remote user testing. And everyone has to do this in person, not just hearsay or second-hand information. So that's a place to start. I would be excited if someone said to me, let's go for a field trip every 6 weeks for 2 hours. I think that would be amazing. Now, on the business side of things, it actually makes sense to work user-centered as well. McKinsey created a design index. McKinsey is one of the biggest consultancy houses in the world, and they conducted research over 5 years with 300 different companies across tech, consumer goods, and retail banking. And they created this benchmark tool that they call the McKinsey Design Index. And what they saw in their research over 5 years with 300 companies is that the businesses with the biggest success work user-centered throughout the organization. You know, they make use of exposure hours and field trips. These companies also have design that plays a central role in strategic planning. So the design department is not siloed. It has to sort of work the other way around. They also have robust design metrics to measure customer satisfaction. And the design department is not siloed. Now, these are important things, but by robust design metrics, I don't mean using Net Promoter Score. Can you read the bottom? Otherwise, I'll read it to you. Net Promoter Score is one question. How likely are you to recommend this product to your friend or colleague? And then you follow up with a please explain why you gave this score. So, how likely are you to recommend Windows 10 to a friend or colleague? This person said not likely at all, and says in the explanation, I need you to understand that people don't have conversations where they randomly recommend operating systems to one another. I guess they're right. So Net Promoter Score, I mean, if someone suggests that, just say no, right away, right off the bat. There are other ways to measure customer satisfaction and measure this type of thing much better. Okay, so the third thing is be nice. It's actually not that hard. Being nice means that you make buttons big enough for small children to actually be able to, to close an ad in the favorite game that they're playing. This is from my phone. My 7-year-old was playing a game, and all of a sudden this ad appeared with this intentionally, 5 by 5 pixels big close icon that a 7-year-old would never be able to successfully tap because their motor skills are not fully developed yet. I mean, heck, I can't even do that, right? So stop doing this kind of stuff. Also stop purposely taking advantage of, our knowledge on how the brain works and that people respond to this kind of stuff. I think this is from Wish. Go figure, right? We're sad to see you go. This is when I unsubscribed from their newsletter, which was kind of difficult, by the way. And so they want me to, they just try one more time. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Get weekly updates. Can we tempt you with that? And if I say no to that, I basically say I don't like discounts. That's the button that I need to tap, to do this. Just stop doing this kind of stuff. This was another example I found in the Dark Patterns channel on Twitter. I swear it's better than YouTube. So this is actually, I don't know, I believe it's Now TV. They have this 4-step cancellation process. So, first you say cancel pass, and then they say, are you sure? Are you sure? The cost, okay, I'll stay. No, I want to cancel. Are you sure? No, I want to cancel. Are you sure? I still want to cancel. I mean, just stop doing this. It's not nice. It's not, it's not nice. It's also not nice to take advantage of the knowledge we have about loss aversion. Loss aversion is, our mind that doesn't want to miss out on a good deal. That's why we buy lots of stuff on sale even though we don't need it. So this is a particularly vile website called Viagogo. Anyone know it? Has anyone ever bought a ticket on Viagogo? Oh yes, that's good. I had a friend who bought a ticket on Viagogo. I was like, oh, you did not. Basically, their business model is to sell concert tickets all over the world, event tickets, for a much higher price than you would normally pay for it if you just went to a formal place to buy your tickets. But what they do is they just basically make use of all the tricks in the book to trigger our loss aversion. So it says, 22 other people are viewing this event, 2 tickets left, recently sold, someone's going in your place. Oh my God, no, someone's going in my place. I better buy it now, right? Get it or regret it, that's my favorite. Get it or regret it. Recently sold, someone, they just go on and on. The thing is, this type of pattern, I have a friend who has multiple sclerosis. He can't use websites like this because they trigger stress in his brain to the extent that it makes him ill. It triggers his multiple sclerosis. It's not nice. It's not fair to do this kind of stuff. Again, we can do better. So what we can also do is to apply some best practice from UX. And there is a multitude of these patterns, so I'll just go through a few of them. And this, again, developers in the room, this is your responsibility as well. Come on, implement some continuous validation. It doesn't hurt you, and it's very, very helpful for the users. The same goes for input prompts, because it actually helps in the sense that you don't you don't make users make mistakes, so they don't have to go through the anxiety of clicking the submit button. You know that anxiety, right? You've entered stuff in a form, and you close your eyes and you click submit and pray that you won't get 2, 3, or 4 errors that you can't really understand why you get them, right? So you have to start over. Do this stuff. It's not hard. Also, make it worth it. Instead of using weird language or trying to trick people into doing something, why not look at the user needs you probably have somewhere in a document and figure out, okay, what can we actually do for the users so that they will want to do this for us in return, right? Also, the shipping costs, the 24% that actually abandon their shopping cart because we can't see the total cost. It's actually not that hard to surface the shipping costs and to surface the total price of an order very early on in the process. The decision to not do that is something that the business decided. We have to challenge that decision and ask for this to happen because we can actually improve our bounce rate by 24%. Also, if you do want to have default pre-selected, go for the most sensible one. Instead of trying to trick people into buying the most expensive subscription, why not go for the one that suits most people? It's not that hard. Also, it's a very good idea to ask for the bare minimum when you create signups. It's actually a very good idea, not just because you make it faster for the user, you reduce friction in the sign-up process. You have no idea how many people I've seen abandon a sign-up process because it was too complicated, because you had to fill in too many form fields. So reducing friction increases the amount of people that actually sign up to your product, and also it increases safety, and it makes it a lot easier to stay GDPR compliant. Now, by safety, I mean the less information you collect, the safer you can keep people. So, because collecting more information than you need puts people at risk. There was an example of, I've done a lot of stuff for children's products. And so I did some research on safety in apps. And it came out that 50% of, there was an analysis done for 6,000 free children's Android apps. More than 50% of them share details with outside companies. in ways that may have violated the law. This type of data included location data on children. Mind-blowing. So what you need to do to start this process is to identify and remove dark patterns and anti-patterns. And you do this through internal tests, external tests, or maybe user tests. So going from the least expensive to the most expensive, internal tests where you utilize a team to go through your website or your product and identify all the patterns that don't make sense from a UX perspective is the cheapest approach, right? The next cheapest is having someone external do that. It probably increases the amount of errors and the amount of problematic patterns you find. And at the end, you have user tests that are absolutely the most expensive, but also very, very valuable. But this is a place to start. Utilizing a team of 3 people and spend a day doing this, or maybe just half a day. That is a very good place to start, and a very sobering place to start. You also need to be honest and transparent about your business. And I mean, I need to bring up one example. Ling's Cars, this is Ling. This is from her website. Do you know Ling's Cars? Just a few of you. Ling's Cars, yeah. Ling's Cars is a car rental service in the UK. And Ling is an incredibly talented businesswoman. And the reason why she has so much success, she had a turnover of £85 million in 2016. £85 million. That's 850 million Danish kroner for the Danes in the audience. The reason why she does that, yeah, not a very flattering image. She actually has a video from herself from her office at all times when she's in her office. Just, to prove that she's real. But the thing is, she is super honest, she's super real, and she has her customers at focus at any time. So that's why she can do this. She has a stellar customer service. Even though her website looks like a train wreck from a Scandinavian perspective, oh my God, she has a thriving business because she is honest and transparent and real. Now, one of the problems we continuously have in UX is return on investment, proving return of investment, right? Why should we even focus on this UX stuff? Because, what does it mean for the bottom line? Well, we can actually measure a lot of UX. We just have to think about stuff a little bit differently. I find that a combination of traditional e-commerce KPIs and more UX-focused KPIs actually make a big difference. So in this case, and it's different from project to project, but for instance, conversion rate is a very common e-commerce KPI, right? But what if we combine that with the percentage of drop-offs during checkout? And what if we combine it with number of support requests per 1,000 orders? That is a very strong measurement to understand whether our website or service works as intended. So it's a matter of combining traditional e-commerce KPIs, developer-oriented KPIs such as validation errors, etc., with KPIs that have a larger focus on support requests, on customer satisfaction, not the Net Promoter Score. The thing is that using black hat UX is a little bit like peeing your pants to stay warm. It may feel really good at the start, but it's a very cold feeling at the end. And it's also a very short-sighted success. And all trends point in the direction that, that we don't want this as consumers any longer. And I also want just to maybe talk to your heart a little bit, because knowledge is power, right? And we as an industry have so much knowledge on how people react, what certain things makes them do, how to trigger certain behavior. Does that mean that we're allowed to use that knowledge as we see fit? I don't think we do. I don't think we're allowed to do that. We shouldn't allow ourselves to do that. It's a choice, right? We need to decide where to draw the line between what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. And it's also a choice of what kind of professional legacy we want to leave, right? What kind of professional legacy do I personally want to leave? Do I want to leave a legacy where I screwed my users over just to make a profit? Not really. I say that delivering products that make you proud is the way to go, and it's in our power, in your power to do so. Thank you very much. I was asked to mention that if you have any questions, you can ask them, and you'll run with the microphone, yeah? I have presents for the first question and the best question with me. You know, just to motivate you a little bit.
Don't
Otherwise,
go
I'll just bring
everyone
my
at once.
Yeah, otherwise I'll just bring my
A few
presents
hands.
back.
No questions?
One here.
Thanks. A lot of the sort of things that you raised there and the sort of black hat techniques, a lot of people will say that they often work
Yes.
and make money for these companies. How, from a business point of view, do you try to balance the sort of be nice versus this technique works? You know, in that mindset, how do you sort of say we should stop doing this, we should make less money and be nice? What do you say is sort of
I don't see it as a trade-off between making less money, but it's a matter of looking at things from a sustainability perspective. Do you want to stay sustainable as a company? I mean, the one thing is people voting with their feet and leaving. I know that the dark patterns are out there because they work, right? Does that mean that they, you know, are the right approach? I honestly don't think so. But I get that they work, and that's why they're used. But one thing is that we have these global megatrends pointing towards more and more people saying no thank you to services like that. The other thing is legislation. GDPR is just a step, you know, in that direction. 5 years from now, I am pretty confident that we will see a legislation that is much, much tighter than we're seeing today. So I think it's a matter of being foresighted and, you know, staying ahead of the competition and staying ahead of legislation by complying to a much stricter rule set than the legislation actually states right now. But we can see in all the, you know, all trends points towards a much stricter legislation in a lot of areas. I think it's, from a sustainability standpoint, it's a wise decision to try to reduce. I'm not saying either or. I know that, you know, most of us honestly work in a gray zone, which is okay, but it's a matter of taking the most vile, you know, patterns that we use and remove them and replace them with something else, just to increase that nice score, be a little bit friendlier, just improve it a little bit. That's a step in the right direction as well.
Yeah, the companies that rely on those techniques don't typically last very long, do they? They're sort of, they've seen a window, they capitalize on it, and then disappear and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Very true. Thank you.
Okay. There are more questions over here. Run! We're running out of time.
Thank you. When you're faced by a stakeholder who's telling you to do something and you want to push back, are there resources that you go to kind of give them the data or information to maybe put them in a mindset to make a better choice?
Yes. So there is, thankfully, a lot of really good research out there on e-commerce, for instance. So because a lot of the bad behavior happens, you know, with e-commerce, and I think the name is Baymart. Baymart.com basically has, you know, they have research from e-commerce going 15, 20 years back, that you can utilize to prove that, you know, this pattern is actually a bad idea, this pattern is a very good idea. Because that's exactly, I exactly find that we can't discuss this based on emotions. We can't say, we should do this because it makes us feel good. You have to have a pretty special CEO, you know, for that to actually go through. But if you can pinpoint towards resources and data that suggest that, you know, it's a poor decision, that's a good idea. Also, maybe I also often reference to all the shitstorms out there, because they do, you know, really penalize companies to a much greater extent than what is often surfaced in the media. You know, you just see something blow up and then it kind of disappears, but you hardly ever see, you know, the numbers that follow that. So I tend to, you know, keep a list of different types of situations where something went horribly wrong, but these companies hardly ever say, you know, we lost so much money on it. They always say, you know, we rode off the storm and everything's fine, when it's not. Just look at Evernote, for instance. Yeah. All right.
I think last question we have time for.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Fiona. I really enjoyed your talk. I just wanted to comment on something the last speaker brought up, the last questioner brought up. It seems, reading between the lines, that you are interested in establishing a quality standard for this use of the product. I'm speaking as someone who's not in tech at all. I work in telemedicine, so I'm an end user from your point of view. And I've been in those situations where I didn't know they were called dark patterns, but they just had a bad energy, so I didn't pursue. But the quality standard should be something, I mean, I work in medicine, there's an ethical standard that everyone signs up to. You know, you have a regulatory body that makes sure that you're an ethical quality standard, then that standard doesn't drop, or else you're fined or you're out, sort of thing. It strikes me that there is no such thing in this industry. Are you aware of any organisation or body that's interested in establishing a quality standard of ethics for tech?
So a lot of things are happening on that front. I don't agree that we have absolutely no quality assurance. I think GDPR is actually a pretty fierce one in Europe anyway. But that mostly has to do with data protection, right?
Yeah,
so So it's a different matter than you know, establishing best practices for UI patterns. I think that most of the energy right now is spent towards data protection and digital safety and digital freedom. So that's a lot of bodies I know, you know, nationally around the different types. I know for a fact that in Denmark we have the Ministry of Tech has created a board of smart people designed to discuss all this kind of stuff. But it's mostly on, you know, data privacy and freedom. You know, the notion of freedom online, staying or becoming more free, having more freedom online. I'm not aware of anyone that works specifically with the UI design side of things.
No, because
it would be interesting though.
Yeah, I think it's actually, from hearing your talk, I think it's desperately needed. I mean,
yeah, it's totally Wild West.
Yeah, because, I mean, I work in telemedicine, so we necessarily depend very highly on tech.
Yeah.
And the GDPR has really revolutionized that in order to make sure that patients' details are anonymized cross-country,
yeah, exactly.
for example. But there's nothing regulating the ethics, the actual nice factor, if you want to call it that.
I think they'll go hand in hand once we, you know, move forward 5 years.
Maybe you could be the woman who starts that organization.
Who knows? I am writing a book about ethical design, so.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, you have to go, I guess.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.